here we are at the Enter Art Fair in Copenhagen, and we're here with Stefan von Bartha to find out about his view on the art of collecting art. If you were to give an advice to a person that wants to become a collector and start collecting art in a serious way, what advice would you give?
I think the most important advice, especially today, is buy art with your eyes and not with your ears. Of course, if you talk to a gallerist will always make a very strong case for their own artist. And I understand that, I think it's also important. But as a collector, someone that wants to start collecting, wants to get into the art world, it's such a big place. There's so many galleries, there's so many artists, there's so many art fairs. It's also very, very overwhelming. So I think it's very much about being able to see as much as possible, go and see shows, go and see, museums, make your own opinion about what you like and what you don't like.
So if you would give them just 3 short words.
Passion, commitment, and culture. Because I think this is what a lot of people are missing out, that the cultural importance of art is where it all comes from. I mean, imagine a world without art.
Tell me the story about your gallery and how it all got started.
It started with my parents, actually. So I'm the 2nd generation running the gallery, and my parents met at the graphic design class in Basel in '68. And after they finished their studies, they both realized that graphic design is nice, but maybe running an art gallery makes more sense in their case. And there was also a very important collector and entrepreneur, Mr. Karl Laszlo, who also is known because he was a very important figure in the Swiss art scene, but he's also one of the persons that was very involved in the kind of like launch of Art Basel. So the fair was actually founded in his living room.
Right.
So he's a very important figure that had a big influence on my parents and was a big supporter also in the beginning. And I had the pleasure, but also the goal or the vision to join my parents' gallery in 2006, and then actually later, a couple of years later, to take over the gallery, and now I'm running it with my wife and a wonderful team in Basel and here in Copenhagen.
Galleries all over the world have different profiles and different agendas with their business. If you were to describe your image and your concept, what would you say?
The gallery has always shown modern and contemporary art, and I know that my parents definitely, as I said before, made a career by discovering certain artistic groups, but also making a name for having a very clear program in a certain direction, also visually. Later, of course, for me, being the next generation, on one hand, you want to, of course, pay tribute to that legacy, but also, there's a big admiration and respect from my end also for all of these artists, but you don't just want to do exactly the same thing.
Building a profile for the gallery is one thing. Building a relationship with the artist and building a relationship with the collectors is another thing, I guess. How do you go about to create that good relationships that you want to have? Sometimes they say it takes 2 to tango. How do you go about to do the tango?
I love that reference, but no, in our case, talking first from the artist's point of view, it always needs to be something that I want to collect myself. That is the very first thing that drives me to a work. Being able to discuss art with the artists and really talk also not only about the commercial aspect of art is very important, but it needs to be also a friendship. It's a little bit like a relationship that has its ups and downs, And I think for me it's key that I prefer the work in the sense of that I also want to collect it myself. I think it's also good when you sometimes sell an artwork and it hurts. When it comes to collectors, it's quite similar. Of course, being a commercial art gallery, you meet a lot of people all over the world. You don't always have a long conversation with these people in the sense of that you don't know their entire life story.
No.
But in an ideal case, you become also like a person of trust. And there again, it's very much about building a connection, getting to understand what a collector likes, what he or she is driven by, what they are interested in, but also having a connection where you can suggest works to these collectors without always come off as the commercial gallerist. So being a little bit like a place where you can discover art and also being a place where the cultural importance of art plays a significant role.
If you look on the world of collecting art, how do you think it has changed over, say, the last 20 years?
the art world has always been a highly commercially driven and you know, money plays a big role when you're able to afford art. But nevertheless, I think today it's so much about that. I felt like in the past it was less about that, it was more about the art. So I hope that there's kind of like, so to say, like a way back to this kind of like attitude of really being more about the artworks or the art of the artists. So I think that has changed, but definitely, I mean, everyone is looking everything up on the iPhone. I think it's key and very important that transparency is growing. I think this is something that the art world has a tremendous lack of. But transparency doesn't mean that, you know, you can look at 6,000 artworks on your phone and then be overwhelmed by that as well. So I think it needs to find a balance. At the moment, everything is very, very quick, very overheated, very like, okay, let's do this. What is this? What is this? And this is also why opinions are going to be made way too quickly, you know. And I think this is something that I think in the past was different 20 years ago.
If you look into the future, into the crystal ball, about the art world of collecting, how do you want it to change, in what direction?
If I look into my crystal ball of wishes, I think really like having the opportunity of people spending more time in the gallery would be something that I would think would be a beautiful development. Of course, that's also our job, you know. If people come in and there's nothing they like and they leave after 2 minutes, the two things need to happen. One is, you know, really reinforcing the conversation about the cultural importance of art. What does art do? And not only talking about what it's worth and which auction records there have been and, you know, how much of an investment it is. I understand if people want to do that, but if it is only about that, that's not in my crystal ball. In my crystal ball, it's really about bringing back, you know, also the cultural importance of art. And the other thing, really also having more time, which is also, I'm also always a very, you know, stressed person and I need to be there and be there. But in general, I would love to be, in my crystal ball, I picture myself being also sitting in the gallery and having time to sit down with people and talk about works in depth.